Executions. We all know what they are. They can mean various different games and with different names. Takedowns, glory kills, and what we all know and love, special executions. So today we are going to be looking at each and every single special execution in factions. We'll be ranking them from S tier to doo-doo F tier. Now you might be asking yourself, how exactly will we be ranking them? Well, we will be ranking the special executions divided by 3 different categories. Brutality. This category is for how brutal the special execution is, whether there are limbs flying, whether it is merciless or not. And let me just say, there are some very, very brutal special executions. Personal. This category is for how personal the special execution feels. And last but not least, efficiency. How good is the execution during the heat of the battle? Is it quick and provides slower cover, or is it slow and leaves you very exposed to enemy fire? Now that we have all the categories listed for the rankings, let's get started. It's alright, the only brutal part about this is basically the curb stomp, but even then, it isn't necessarily that brutal. I'll give this a 4. There really isn't any sort of bond going on between the two, it's just 2 kicks and the victim is facing away from the killer either way. 2. While it does leave you exposed as you seem to be tall as an Enderman while doing the execution, it is pretty quick, but that recovery time could have been a lot shorter. A 1. This will be for a total of 7 points, leaving unarmed 1 on D tier. Well, for the brutality, he turns him around, punches him 3 times in the face. It's okay in levels of brutality, so I give this a 5. Now this has a bit more bond to it. They're face to face, and that delay before the last punch, I love it. It builds up the punch and sends a message. I'll give it a 7. Now this is an efficient special execution. Not only does it finish the job quickly, but it also keeps you low profile. And also has no delay right after finishing the kill, so I'll give this a 9. So this is total for 21 points, leaving unarmed 2 on B tier. For the stealth shift 1, in brutality levels, I am a sucker for necks. That is not what I meant. What I meant is I like how brutal slicing necks and stuff is. You know what, dude? I'll give it an 8 in brutality. Let's just... For personal, there really isn't any personal connection between the man and the victim, as the victim doesn't even get to see the killer's face. It just happens. So it's a 1. For efficiency, quick, silent, low profile. What else could you ask for? A 10. This leaves it at 19 points, leaving Stealth Shift 1 on B tier. For Stealth Shift 2 in the brutality levels, for some reason I believe this one is a lot less brutal than Stealth Shift 1. If you disagree, well, too bad, stupid bozo. It is still decently brutal, however. I'll give this a 6. Once again, I don't believe this has any sort of personal connection between the two, but just because the last stab in the back of the face, I'll add a few points to it. I'll give it a 3. For efficiency, I do believe the shift animation is a lot faster than the other one, but a lot of people say it's the same. But I like to believe it's faster, so. The only thing is that it is in low profile and the recovery leaves you standing still for a bit, so I have to rank it lower than shift 1. I'll give it an 8. This goes 17 points and it's on B tier.
I'm down! That's 1.
Anything neck related is pretty brutal, but it isn't something that makes me go like, oh, or ouch, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't rank brutality too high, so I give it a 5. For personal, I like to believe that after the stab, the killer looks straight into the victim's eyes, just like that one John Wick scene, like when he's infiltrating the nightclub, I think. I would say it's very personal, but it goes by pretty quick. If the killer would have kept staring at him all the way down instead of just dropping him, it would have been ranked a lot higher, but I still give it a 9. This execution is very quick. If you're not being faced by an enemy, you will have time to react before they realize what is going on. I'll give it a 10. This goes for a total of 24 points, leaving it at A tier. That thing is brutal in a way that it is definitely unnecessary to stab the enemy that many times when they're stunned. So I'll give it a 10. While it is pretty close up, like face to face, it does lack that eye contact, but it is still very high. So I'll give it a 9. For efficiency, it does last quite a bit and it is very loud because of stabs. And I'm biased, so I'll give it an 8. Total of 27 points, leaving it at S tier.
Almost done. Keep the pressure on.
For ground shift 1, in levels of brutality, this one I would say is pretty brutal just by the fact of how he grabs the victim. You can see them struggling, but then a quick slice at the neck and pushes them away. I'll give it an 8. As for the personal, the killer is pretty up close and personal to the victim, but never do the face-to-face thing. I'll give it a 4. As for efficiency, while it does keep you relatively low profile, you do stand up right after the execution, which leaves you vulnerable. I'll give it a 4. This is total for 16, so it leaves it at C tier. For ground shift 2 in levels of brutality, that's like 10,000 stabs, man. Like, and he's doing it on his stomach. There's no way that it's not brutal. It's definitely a 10. As for the personal, the whole time the victim knows he's being stabbed by that person, so this is definitely very personal. There's no way that the victim forgets that face even in the afterlife. So it's a 10. Even though it is pretty cool and brutal and everything, it is a really long execution, but it does provide low profile, adding a bit more points. A 2, which is a total of 22, which leaves it at A tier.
Cover me. I gotta catch up.
For lethal efficiency, if you've watched my videos before, you know that it's one of my favorite perks. For the levels of brutality, it could be higher. It is just a simple neck snap, so it's pretty decent. So I'll give it a 5. There isn't really anything about it other than the close body contact going on between the two, so it's a 4. For efficiency, now this is literally in the perk's name, and that is what it does best. Lethal efficiency 2 is very quick and also keeps you low profile after you finish executing the enemy. This is an easy 10. This goes for a total of 19, which leaves it at B tier. For wooden board 1, well, it's 2 smacks. The only brutal part about it is the beatdown. I guess that last smack on the back of the head gives it a few points. 4. There's no eye contact, there's no physical contact, there's nothing personal going on here, so it's a fat 1. It's very slow at getting the execution, it leaves you very exposed. It's a bit of a fast recovery, but it doesn't make up for the amount of time executing, so it's a 2. This is a total of 7 points for a D tier. Kicks him on the side, then proceeds to smack down the wooden board onto the victim's face twice. And those 2 hits, they're pretty satisfying. I'll give it an 8. Not only does he stare at the victim's face, but he also kicks him onto his stomach to do the beatdown. The only non-personal thing about this will be the fact that he's not too close to the victim and isn't using his hands. I'll give it a 9. While not the most efficient as he is standing up straight, it is decently fast and you can move almost immediately after the camera resets. So it's a 7. This goes for 24 points in total, which is an A tier. For the machete, the kick to the face into a slice of the neck, I think that part was really unnecessary, but it's really cool. This is definitely up there in brutality levels with an amazing level of 8. It is a kick to the face, anything related to the face is pretty personal. Then a slice right after with the machete, I would definitely say this is high up there in personal levels, which gives it a 9. Well, this execution is cool, it doesn't really provide too much cover. It has decent speed, but overall isn't the execution you can do mid-battle, unlike others, so it's a 4. This goes for a total of 21, which means it's a B tier. As for the machete 2, the only brutal thing about this would be that big slash to the back, but it really isn't that much, so it wouldn't be ranked too high. I think the only thing that carries it is the sound effect, really. It's a 5. The only thing personal about this was that the simple kick at the beginning, and that's it. Nothing else. It's a 1. A bit quicker than the alternative, but still not very good cover. It's a 3. So it's a total of 9, which is D tier. I will say this is decently brutal, but it's not too much, so it's a 6. It is very up close and personal, but the victim never gets to see the face of the killer, so it's a 2. Low cover, which is good, but it does take forever to execute the enemy. Then the recovery time as well, very slow. This is a 1. Total of 9 for D tier. First things first, this will be much better with a single shot weapon. The burst pistol isn't the best with executions as they didn't count for the burst weapons when designing the special executions. He kicks him, holds him down with their foot and shoots him in the face. It would be a 6. You know that delay right before shooting him in the face? That gives the victim enough time to see who their killer is and even make them fear for their life. I feel like this is very personal indeed. A 10. It's very slow, not very good, low profile, and recovery takes a bit. Not the best at being efficient, but very personal, so it's a 1. This goes 17 points for a B tier. You see how the person is struggling for their life, trying to reach out for the gun to stop them? This makes the scene even more brutal, so this is a 7. That face to face while the victim is struggling and the killer just doing that cool animation with the revolver, that little spinny thing, that is very disrespectful. Personally, I will not take that type of disrespect. I'll give it a 10. This is where it falls off. It's very slow, very exposed, but it has decent recovery, so I guess it has that going. I'll give it a 3. This is 20 points for a B tier. That smack on his back into the killer rolling his revolver chamber, but it isn't that brutal compared to others, so that's a 5. It was cool, but it's not brutal. They aren't really face to face, but the rolling of the chamber really made it a lot more disrespectful. Adding a few points to personal levels, still a 5 though. While the execution itself is very slow, the recovery is very fast. So this goes for a 6, which leaves it at 16 points for a C tier. for a handgun one, man, I absolutely love this execution. The kick to a killer stepping onto a victim, to reloading and then shooting the victim 5 times, there's nothing I have to say about it. It's an 8. It's very personal. You can see the victim struggling as their killer has their leg on top of their face, swinging their arms, trying to reach for the gun. Then the 5 shots just seem a bit overkill, which gives it a little more points in the personal category. So it's a 10. It doesn't really have so much of a great recovery, and it takes a while to kill the enemy, so it's a 5. That's for 23 points for an A tier. I literally don't have to explain the brutality levels on this. This is a 10. For personal, it's basically the same thing as on Arm 2, but I feel like it has a lot more aggressiveness to it. By the way, he just like smacks it. I don't know. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm trying to say, but it's a 9 basically. Low profile, decent speed of execution and very fast recovery. Probably one of the best executions to use in combat for an 8. 27 points, S tier. Pretty decent in levels of brutality. There isn't really much going on, just a smack and a single shot to the head, which goes for a 5. The killer does stare at the victim for a bit, probably to aim their shot, but the victim gets to see this is going on while they can't do anything about it. I mean, the killer rolled away, but I don't know, that would have been me. So this goes for a 6. While it is decently fast in speed, it provides no cover whatsoever, which leaves you very vulnerable, which goes for a 3. 14 points, C tier.
That was dead.
Well, to be honest, this is the same thing as the wooden stick execution, but for some reason this feels less brutal, which gives it a 5. Same thing, a kick into 2 beatdowns to the face, pretty personal if I do say so myself. I'll give it a 9. Same thing once again, not very fast, but you can move pretty soon after the execution. Goes for a 7. Total of 21 for B tier. Now hear me out. While this execution seems brutal because of how disrespectful it isn't that cool of an execution. I don't know, something feels off about this execution that I can't quite get the grasp of, but oh well. I'll give it a 3. No eye contact at the back of the victim, shot him 3 times, a 1. While you might look cool executing an enemy like that, it won't work in an apocalypse. Very back cover, it takes a while to finish the execution. 1. Total of 5 points. Oh hey look, our first F tier execution. Okay, next. Brutality, I kind of like this one. They use their rifle to choke the victim out, but then instead does a bamboozle and breaks their neck. A 6. While very close to each other, there really isn't any personal bond between the two, so a 6. Low cover, mediocre speed of execution, and you can act almost immediately after. A 7. 19 points for B tier. It's whatever in levels of brutality, just a shot in the head, that's all. It's a 4. Takes a good while to get the shot in, leaving time for the victim to see what is about to happen and who it is. Gives this a 7. Very slow, low cover, long recovery, that's it. It's a 1. 12 points, leaving it at C tier. Kick to the face, then a butt kick to the throat, and then shoots him in the face. My man did not have to do that combo wombo to him like that. It's solid 9. That execution was definitely merciless, and then that little gap right before the shot gives it time to kick in who their killer is. A 7. It is pretty slow, but cool. But slow. 2. 18 points for B tier. You see that right after the first shot, their leg starts to twitch? Yeah, that's pretty brutal. And not only that, get shot right in the face with an arrow, that leg twitching definitely carried the ranking on brutality. 10. It really isn't that personal, other than the eye contact right before the last arrow hits, so I'd give it a 4. Not very good cover, it has decent speed and decent recovery. A 3. 17 points, B tier. Man, that is really just brutal having an arrow stuck on the side of your throat. Then the struggle of getting it out right after stabbing in. The only thing is how simple the execution is. A 7. Not too much personal things going on here. Just the mere fact that it was stabbed instead of shot gives it a little boost in personal levels. 5. Very, very slow. That's basically why. A 1. 13 points, C tier. Man, that is just scary thinking about how the execution is done. Being shot at the stomach that close, you won't survive, there's no way. Just the fact that it was a gun and not a fist or a knife lowers its ranking. An 8. Holding the victim down while shooting the stomach out is definitely personal. Even if they didn't do any sort of eye contact, it is very highly ranked. Otherwise, would have been a perfect 10, I would say. It's an 8. Good low cover, decent speed of execution. I could see someone pulling this off in the middle of a gunfight. 24 points, A tier.
One less straggler to worry about.
This is basically the same thing, but the less brutal version. The whole personal thing is now way lower since it's on their back and the killer uses their foot to hold them down instead of their hand, which is a 4. About the same as the automatic 1 execution, but with no low cover. A 4. 14 points for ranking at C tier. And finally, the execution that you guys have most been waiting for, the shotgun. I mean, do I even have to explain this? Boom, leg chalked off. Boom, headshot. It's a 10. I mean, like, a struggle. That is what makes it personal. Face to face, personal, a 10. Now, the only thing from making this execution having the perfect score is the low cover it provides. An 8. 28 points total for a surprising place on S tier. This is the same thing, but the less brutal version, but the attempt of the victim trying to deviate the shotgun shot was amazing, which gives it an 8. The personal levels go a bit lower simply because it's from their back instead of face to face. A 7. I guess it's slightly faster, but even then it isn't that much different. An 8. 23 points total, A tier. And there you have it, folks. The official, unofficial, special execution tier list. I do believe my ranking was pretty fair. Like, lethal efficiency is probably one of my favorite ones, but I didn't rank it on S tier just because I try to have a non-biased attitude towards the executions. Efficiency is the only thing that could be objective about this tier list. Well, either way, it was fun to make this tier list, and now this makes me want to buy all the special executions, which I think I'm going to be doing that right now. But either way, with that said, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, remember, when all is lost, you will find life. Have a good night, guys.